everyone. My name is Davey. I'm the Director of Production Ministries here at Grace Life Baptist Church. And over the last couple weeks, if you've joined us, we've talked about what it means to worship and connect. And now we have our operations pastor, Pastor Will Nargan, going to talk to us about what it means to serve. Pastor Will, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day. And I guess just right out of the gate, first of all, though, talking about serving, you've served with many hats in your time here at Grace Life.
Worn a few hats over the years.
Currently, you're the operations pastor, so you kind of oversee a lot of our serving operations, serving logistics. But I guess just the 1,000-foot view, as we've been kind of going through this, why do we serve?
Yeah,
just in general.
Here at Grace Life, obviously, we have 4 key words that we kind of say, if you're living a grace life or life in Christ, you're going to have worship in your life. You're going to connect to God's people. You're going to serve. And you're going to go. You're going to go to the world and share the gospel. Well, serve is a very key part of that for a number of reasons. We're called ultimately, 1 Corinthians 10:31, whatever you do it for the glory of God, right? So that means, all right, so what I'm supposed to be doing, whether it's down to the simplest task or being intentional to use your gifts that God's given you to serve the Lord. So what that looks like around the church would be, all right, I'm given the gift of being able to play, an instrument. So then I can plug into the worship ministry and serve. Or I love being, teaching kids and things like that. So I'm going to do that. Use the gifts that God's given me, but I'm going to do it in a way that builds the church and pleases the Lord, right? But in even a broader idea, we're called to give evidence of our salvation. Ephesians 2, verses 8 through 10 talks about, we're saved by grace through faith, and it's not anything that we do. It's a gift of God. But we're created in Christ Jesus to do good works, to walk in them. So really, once you're a Christian, we're not doing good works to earn our salvation or keep our salvation. We're doing these good works. We're serving to give evidence that we are a Christian, to be a witness to those around us, to use the gifts, the abilities that God's given us to thank Him, to praise Him for how we live. And so that's why it's one of the big 4. It's just really to give evidence, to please the Lord. And then ultimately, the Bible talks about, we're called as Christians to be humble, to not, be conceited, not think of ourselves more than we ought to really to think about others more, to outdo one another in showing honor. So in other words, I tell people all the time, the biggest way to if you're having a pity party, the me monster's creeping up in your life, and the best way to get rid of it is to serve somebody else. Take the attention off of yourself, off of your circumstances, and then focus it on somebody else. How can I serve? Look for those needs to serve. And so it's just a great way to refocus your life, to give evidence of your salvation, to please the Lord, to find joy in using the abilities that God's given you for His glory. And we say it all the time, He gets the glory and we get the joy. So that's kind of the big idea of why it's one of the 4.
So somebody who's, maybe just started plugging in around Grace Life, maybe they're a new member, or maybe they've, we've talked in the past, some people have gotten disconnected and they've reconnected and they want to start, getting plugged in or figuring out what serving looks like around Grace Life. What's the starting point to have that conversation? Or is it just a conversation in general to start where they're able to serve?
Yeah. So again, you may have heard the adage, around churches, 20% of the people do 80% of the work, right? And that's not healthy. That's not a healthy church. It's not healthy for that person, right? Because usually what happens if they're doing all the work, they get burned out and the cycle just repeats itself if that's the way your church operates. Well, we identified that being a problem years and years ago, and we said, man, we need 100% of the people doing 100% of the work, spread it out, right? God's gifted everybody. The Bible's very clear. He's given us those spiritual gifts to every person who's a follower of Christ. And so it's one of our expectations as a member that you will plug into serving. And so we want to find out, how are you wired up? Part of our membership conversations as we're meeting new people, how you want to be part of the church family. Well, let me back up. To plug into the ministries in an official capacity, you do have to be a member of the church. And some people, why do I have to be a member to pass out worship guides or sing in the choir? Well, it all goes back to identifying who is in the church, who not the building, but who's in the body, who are the believers. And so that's why we have a membership process. And so to serve in any of the ministries of Grace Life, you do have to be a part of the family, so to speak. But then we through that conversation, as we're getting to know you, as our brother and sister in the Lord and as a member of Grace Life, how has God wired you up? What gifts do you have? And some people know without a doubt. I love playing the drums. I see, that's a ministry here. Put me in the worship ministry. Great, fantastic. Some people come and they say, look, I know what I'm gifted at. I drive a bulldozer for a living. What can I do for that? Hey, great. We have 70 acres here. It's got a lot of dirt on it. You can use your gifts for God's glory. And we do. I mean, that's with a big campus like we have, we need a lot of hands. And then others, I love kids. I love working with students. A lot of people, you can tell by their personality, they're bubbly, they like to talk. Hey, would you mind being a greeter? We need, oh yeah, that sounds good. And some people that come in and go, I don't have a clue. And that's okay. All right, we'll help you figure that out. Sometimes it's something, we'll probably start with something easy, like, being one of our sanctuary greeters, giving out worship guys. I said, can you do this? And can you say good morning? Yeah. Okay. That's all is required to do that. But it's really just kind of identifying where they might want to serve and then helping them figure out what that looks like. And then at Grace Life, trying to avoid that burnout, we're very careful not to plug people into too many ministries at one time.
Yeah.
Some ministries are, happen every week. Some happen once a year, pumpkin patch kind of event or a vacation Bible school. And some people, they would run themselves crazy because they want to, and maybe from a good place, they want to serve, they want to do a lot, but not realizing, being that I have been around for a few years, decades now, you see people burn out and you want to try to protect them from doing that. So we just try to, get people plugged into where they love to serve, where they're gifted to serve, so they find joy in serving. And if they try something and it doesn't work, it's okay. We got a lot of needs, a lot of opportunities to serve around here. And so we've set up and structured a lot of our ministries with rotations. So like, let's say our greeters, for example, you may only serve one Sunday, even 1 hour of our Sunday morning schedule once a month. So that way you're not missing your life group or you're not missing, worship service 3 times a month or something like that. So it allows you to be connected to the body of Christ. There's the other word, connect. It allows you to worship, allows you, to be involved in other areas of church life and following Christ. But then also having the joy of serving. And so not only are we serving for God's glory, but part of serving is that we're building up the body, right? We're encouraging others. We try to outdo one another and showing honor. And Jesus had that mentality, right? Mark 10, I believe it is, tells us that he came not to be served, but to serve. And so as Christians, as followers of Christ, we follow his example. We got to have, it starts with our mentality, right? So I come to the church or I come to worship and going, not what can y'all do for me, but I'm looking for opportunities to serve. And so around Grace Life, like I said, we've structured, most of our ministries do rotate. Some don't. Some, like children's teachers, teach for an entire quarter. Yeah. And they rotate out for the other remainder of the year. So it looks different. Pastor Saint has a small army of people that serve to keep the grounds looking beautiful, cutting grass and weed eating, all that kind of stuff. And so those guys that, hey, I run equipment for a living. Oh, great, we need you too. Or I like to cook. How can I do that at church? We serve membership meals and do events and hospitality kind of stuff. And so there's a million different ways that we can plug people into serving so that they can use those gifts and find joy in pleasing the Lord, giving the evidence of their salvation, that they have a desire to serve others, but then ultimately find great joy in serving here at Grace Life.
So you talking about a minute ago, you mentioned trying to outserve others, and if anyone's been around for any length of time, you know that there is one person on our staff that is always trying to outdo and outserve, but he doesn't want anybody to know, and it rubbed off on a lot of his students, and we saw that over the summer with the Camp Shadow Lake staff. We had a story this morning about some of those. And obviously Pastor Bryant he's maintenance, he's students, he's anything he needs to be. But you're talking about setting that example.
Right.
I mean, just raising up the 6, 7, 8 fresh and then, years ago when they were all combined, some of the older students, and just seeing the students that he's led and kind of poured into, just replicating that, and those younger students seeing it. So you don't have to be an adult, you don't have to be a parent, you don't have to be a life group leader, anything like that. You can just be serving, and not with the thought process of anyone seeing it or anyone knowing. But a lot of times, I mean, there's people on this campus almost all day, every day, 7 days a week. Someone's going to notice, and that rubs off on people more than you think. Just seeing someone going out of their way to pick up that trash on the basketball court, or to clean up that spill, or whatever it may be.
No, it's contagious in a lot of ways, right? So, one, we're called to be examples, to be a witness for what God's done in our life, and so serving obviously is a tangible way to do that. Again, we don't serve for the praise of man. We're doing it ultimately for the Lord. But there is an idea that you can't serve on a campus with thousands of other people and not get noticed at some point. But again, what we're doing, and we encourage all ages to serve, right? If you're a follower of Christ, regardless of what age you are, we're called to serve. We're gifted to serve. And so we encourage, families to serve together. You may see a family greeting together, or have their kids at the front door standing next to them. Obviously, some things are limited to certain age requirements. We can't put a 6-year-old on a Kubota lawnmower out there. It might not be healthy. But when it makes sense, when we can, we love for our students, our kids to serve alongside. I love that, some of our ministry, our children's ministry, they're focusing on having kids serving each other on Wednesday night. Student ministry, obviously doing the same, having greeters and people serving in the tech booth back there. And then when our adults serve, a lot of times we position certain things. Go, hey, I know y'all are our front door greeters. You've got kids. Anytime you want your kids to serve out there with you, by all means, because it does a couple of things. One, it's great for other families. I see your kids serving. Maybe I need to encourage my kids to serve in some way. And kids see other kids doing it. And, I want to do that. That's why, a lot of in our worship ministry, tech ministry, you're very aware, man. I love to see, sometimes it's all students in the tech booth. And it's like, man, and people see that and they go, that is pretty awesome. And one, it's a good practical thing too, right? Yeah. We're getting older, Davey. And we got to hand this off eventually at some point. And so we need to be continually raising up, not only obviously passing down the gospel, older teaching the younger, it's a biblical principle, but the real practical side of things of just continually handing it down to the next generation so that they can use their gifts. And but it is contagious, man. I think, especially if you're serving with joy. Yeah. I gotta make coffee. That's no fun. But it's the idea of whatever you're doing, do it for the glory of God. And definitely we want to be very intentional to pass down that servant mentality, not the consumer mentality, but the servant mentality to that next generation.
So talking about serving as a family and all that, I know as we've grown and as we've had to, adjust with size and just the number of kids especially and all that, I know we have some folks that their whole focus is to make sure that people are serving, and whether it's in the same area or not, but trying to serve at the same time. So they're not missing out on worship. It's, mom served this week, dad served this week, kids are sick the third week, and so it could just wreck your worship cycle as a family. Yeah. You may not be in worship all together for a month sometimes, but now we are really trying to hey, mom's in the nursery week 1, okay, dad's greeting, or dad's doing this or that or whatever it may be, and then that way it's, hey, the rest of the month or the rest of that rotational period, hey, we're all in worship together, we're all going to life group in our mom and dad together, or however that breaks down.
Well, if you just leave it up to chance and say, all right, you're serving here and I'm serving here, but you experience that same burnout. It may not be you individually, but your family as a whole. We're never worshiping together. We're never, always pass you in the hallway kind of thing. So where we can, a lot of our ministry directors and staff work together. So, for example, if there's a family that's serving, say the wife is serving in the nursery and the husband's on security team, we try to sync up their weeks and even hours that they serve so that the family's serving at the same time. Let's say that their kids are in life group and they're serving in the nursery and security all the first hour of the first week of the month. Well, then that way they serve at the same week. They know, hey, we got 3 more weeks of the month that we can all be together and worship in life group and that kind of thing. So that's one way to help protect it, and it syncs it all up for them. And they appreciate it, I think, where we can do it. You can't always do it. It doesn't always work like that, but we try to be intentional with how we schedule them, when we schedule them to serve. So again, we want it to be a joyful experience.
So I know there's a ton of different ways people can plug in here. regardless, like you said, of their age or whatever, if they do want to plug in, what's the best way for them to do that? Is it to, reach out to our staff or call the office or the ministry area directly, or if they just don't know, they've gone through the membership process and now they're kind of like, well, hey, I kind of am interested in this now since we talked, I've changed my mind, or I've seen this. How do I plug in? What's the best way for somebody to do that?
Yeah, I would say if they don't really know where they want to serve, maybe start with myself or one of our pastors, and we would kind of help maybe narrow it down for them. And then say, all right, you want to serve in one of our grass cutters? All right, go talk to Pastor Saint. Or if they don't know, we can help maybe direct them. But if they already know, what area, and they know who the ministry leader is. So, for example, if they want to work in the nursery, rocking babies, all right, let's get you connected with Miss Kim. She's a volunteer coordinator for the children's department. I'll get her to contact you, or you can feel free to contact them. All of our staff are available. Email and cell phone numbers are on our website. And all of us would be glad to help somebody. But I would say, if reach out to that pastor or ministry leader that's over that ministry, or just grab any of the pastors or shoot us an email or text and go, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'd love to serve in making coffee or whatever you want to do. And we'll, by all means, get you plugged in to serve in that specific ministry area.
Okay. So that's all within the walls of the church or within the property of the church. Sure. If you're working outside. Yeah. How can we serve people around us? How can we serve people outside the church that we encounter in our day-to-day lives? Now, obviously, you and I work here, but people who go to their job and then come to church on the weekends or Wednesdays or whenever they may be, how can they reach their coworkers and their community and their neighborhood?
And so that's a great point, great question, because those things, worship, connect, serve, and go, all that, we do a lot of that as we gather here, but that's really a lifestyle. Right? And our lifestyle is happening majority of the time outside of the church campus. And so it all goes back to that mentality. As an individual, I'm to have a servant mentality wherever I go. I live with gospel intentions. I live with a different mentality than a non-believer should. So it means like when I'm going to a restaurant, right? Or anywhere really, whatever the task is for the day, I can go about trying to accomplish tasks and get my to-do list done. Or I can say, all right, I got to go to the grocery store, but I might be, have a conversation with somebody, or I might be open, at least open and willing and ready to have a conversation or to encourage somebody. It doesn't be a long, drawn-out thing. It could be, hey, good to see you today, or thank you for helping me today, or sometimes the Holy Spirit will intervene and you'll have a gospel conversation right there in the frozen food aisle. But I think it's being intentional to look for those opportunities to serve. And again, you yourself, teaching your kids, we're going to take some time. We're going to go serve other people. It needs to be a mentality of our family, even within the family, right? Looking at, hey, take out the trash, do stuff that even when you're not asked to do something, look for needs that are out there and go meet those needs. And so it's just a different way of thinking, a different approach to how you live your life. And again, it's a great way to just find personal joy. It's so fun when you get to do something make other people feel good. It makes you feel good, right? So selfishly, you're getting great joy out of serving and doing things for other people. But if you're always focused on yourself, you're not going to have that servant mentality. That's that consumer mentality. It's all about me and what I want and how I want it done. So it's a different way of living. So, I would encourage a family, be intentional. Think about it. Take inventory of either as your family or you as an individual. How are you spending your time? It's a stewardship principle, right? Just like, we steward our money, we steward our resources, we steward our time. How am I going to spend my days? I may have to accomplish some tasks, but can I do them with maybe a little different mentality or different perspective and do them for the glory of God? Whatever we do. Doesn't just mean here at the church. Getting your oil changed, going to get groceries, hobbies, playing pickleball for the glory of God. How can I do that? But with a servant mentality.
So talking about serving and how that all connects to worshiping, connecting, and going, one of the ways that I know you guys, specifically your family, and some of the others that have been, pretty faithful in going to Shrimp Fest and serving down there, but that's also a way that you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know the time I got to go down with you guys, you were serving people there. Right. You were handing out Bibles, you were talking to people, but you were also, hey, we've got face painting for the kids. We have games, and you guys change that up from year to year. But that's a way of serving and going.
Yeah.
So
those four things, there's so much overlap. Right? When we're serving, we're doing it from a heart of worship. A lot of times we're serving with other church members as a team, and we're connecting with one another. We're physically doing some things that serve, but ultimately we're presenting the gospel. We're giving out Bibles or tracts or even having conversations with people. So yeah, a lot of times there's a lot of overlap there. So whether we're going to Shrimp Fest and we're giving out popcorn or painting faces, or we're doing it, we're serving other people, but it is a part of the greater mission that all of us are called to, is to go and be that gospel witness. Whether it's like we have a team that came back from Alaska building, a church building, physically building something. They were serving that group of people there. They're doing it for the glory of God. So there's a lot of opportunities. It goes back to, how is your family or you as an individual spending your time? Look, I like vacation as much as the next person, but if you can take trips, but also do it with some gospel intentions, great, but it doesn't have to be that big a deal. It could be something as simple as going to the Piggly Wiggly for the glory of God. That can be a mission trip where you go and you're doing something, but you're doing it with gospel intentions. You're that servant mentality. But yeah, at Grace Life, we do create a lot of opportunities for you to serve and go and worship and connect. Do all four of those things at the same time. And that's a great way, because there's accountability, there's encouragement. Not everybody, has the gift of gab like maybe I do, so they don't feel as comfortable being out front talking to people, but they can paint faces, or they can hand out Bibles, or they can set things up and clean things that, they have the gift and they're using their gifts, but working together as a team, we're all going to serve, and ultimately we're all going to point people to Jesus and just be the hands and feet of Jesus to share the love of Christ with those that we come into contact with.
So talking about being able to serve and going on the mission trips and serving, we'll break all of that down in several ways that you can serve and go next week when we hear from our missions pastor, Pastor Johnny Horton. But again, if you have any questions about Grace Life, or you want to get caught up on everything we've done, those links will be in the description below. Again, or you can check out yourgracelife.com. Again, thank you so much, Pastor Will. My name is Davey. We will see you in the next one.